What's up YouTube, it's me, Caden, aka The Viper, aka half of Team CLB, and today I am bringing you what I think is personally the best version of Cubics right now. I think it's really a toss-up between this and the blind second version. This version is a lot better at going first and isn't terrible at going second, so it's got the versatility, but it doesn't have the same consistency almost as the blind second build does. As you can look already, there's just a lot of one-ups in this deck. We kind of came up with this build on stream just kind of randomly, to be honest. We were thinking about it, and with the Chaos Ruler hit, we thought that this version was going to be pretty much dead, though through some testing the other day we found out that that is not the case. We have a few different versions. This is the one we settled on being better overall through like playing through hand traps and overall being consistent compared to the other version we made, which while it has a slightly higher ceiling is definitely a lot more bricky. So to start off our deck profile, we have 3 Dues of the Meter Cubic Vessel. This card is amazing. It is a soft once per turn Foolish Burial on summon of any cubic card. So you can use it to send Karma to search, you can use it to send Dharma to recur. If you're going second, you can send Wave and banish it along with monsters to negate. You can send Unification as the extender if you're going first. It also has an effect that's really helpful during the battle phase, wherein during the turn a monster was sent to the graveyard, you can activate his effect and he'll gain 200 for every monster in your grave with a different name. Usually in Pure this is only 800 attack or so, but in this version I've gotten him to 4600 or so, just based off the fact that we're playing so many different searchable one-ups that you go through during your combo, and there's just a lot you can do with just Medusa now. Not just Medusa, but like Medusa can get to a lot because of how good he is. Then we're playing 2 Crimson Nova. This is the only build I would advocate for only playing 2. You can special summon him by revealing 3 other cubic cards. Yes, that can include an additional copy of Crimson Nova, so if you open both, don't worry, one of them can still be live. He's unaffected by the activated effects of monsters whose original attack is 3000 or less. So if your opponent, say, activates Savage Dragon to negate his effect, doesn't work. And then during the end phase, both players take 3000 damage. That can cause a draw. I've done it a few times. It's a little bit disrespectful, but sometimes it's the best course of action. He also has an additional attack if he destroys something by battle. That's usually one of the ways that you're going to try and push for lethal if you open enough cubic cards. If you don't, you can still go for lethal in other ways. Next, we have the deck's Soul Charge. You can special summon him by sending 3 cubic monsters on your side of the field to the grave, and if he's summoned like that, he has 3000 attack. And then regardless of if he's summoned like that or not, he can attack 3 times. So he's just 9000 damage potentially, a lot of the time. But his best effect, and the reason that he can often be part of your end board, is that if he's sent to the grave by an opponent's card, battle or card effect, you can target up to 3 cubic monsters in your grave, special summon them, and then add a cubic card from either your deck or your grave to your hand. So if your opponent Nibiru's him, if your opponent destroys him by battle, if they Raigeki him or whatever, he's just a Monster Reborn 3 search 1. And that's insane. So you use him, he's part of your end board, so that way if your opponent nibs at the end step, you still have some kind of plays you can do. Usually it's going to be something simple like ending on a Link 2 or something, but still, it's ridiculous that he can do that. You could also just end on him again so your opponent has to kill him a second time and you don't die. Then we have Garagile. He's our main deck cowboy for time. If he's special summoned, his mandatory effect is to burn for 800. His other effects will absolutely never come up. If you manage to kill something by battle with him though, despite his 800 attack, you just special summon a Vijam and you can't add this because we're not playing it. Then we have the 1 Vijam. He can't be destroyed by battle, but really he's just here as a name, a possible level 1 extender. He can't be destroyed by battle, which is convenient. He also has the effect that after he battles, you can move him to the spell and trap zone as a continuous spell to give your opponent a cubic counter. And you'll notice with every card that gives monsters cubic counters, the counter negates the effects and prevents that monster from attacking. That's it for the cubic main deck monsters. So the Punk monsters, we have 3 Ziamin. It's the second best normal summon in the deck usually, sometimes the best normal summon depending on the situation. Just the fact that it gets your Punk combos steamrolling is amazing. Then we have 3 Foxy Tune. This is probably the best Punk monster in the deck, solely because of its ability to discard another card, which is really good for the cubic cards as well as some of the other cards that are playing, i.e. the Eldlich that you can see down the line, because a lot of them have graveyard effects that are really, really good. Usually you're using this to summon Sharakusai from the deck, though depending on the hand you could use him to summon the Deer Note or the Madam Spider. It really depends. Then we just have Ogre Dance. Ogre Dance is our 4th copy of either Ziamin or Foxy Tune, usually Foxy Tune. It puts another name engraved for Duza, so a lot of the times you'll add an additional step. So you'll Ziamin search Numeral Ogre or Ogre Dance, whatever you want to call it. You'll Ogre Dance to add Deer Note. That's what you do if you have a second Punk monster in hand, is you Ogre Dance to add the Deer Note. If you opened like one of these. Ogre Dance adds the Deer Note. Deer Note can summon itself that way. Then we have Deer Note. This is the only reason the deck works. If this card didn't exist, the deck would be bad. Her first effect, hopefully you never have to use it to summon herself. God forbid summon another one, but sometimes it comes up. Other effect is the important one though. When it's sent to the graveyard, you can target a punk in your grave except a level 5 and special summon it. Note that after you use that effect, you cannot summon her for the rest of the turn. That can be kind of important. So next we have Sharakusai. He is both an extender during your turn and part of your end board. So during your turn, you use him to fusion summon the Carp Rising, and Carp Rising is going to usually summon Deer Note and Madam Spider, and then you bring him back later with the Deer Note's effect, so that way you can quick effect synchro into Amazing Dragon on your opponent's turn. Next we have Madam Spider. She's just the extra punk name we play because we don't want to play Wagon because the 2 continuous spells are bad and we're playing Prosperity, so we don't want to play the Extreme Jam Session and not be able to use it. Plus the trap is at least some form of interaction post a Dark Ruler, so that's what we have that for. And then we have the 1 Ghost Ogre. This is just a searchable one of you add off of Gem Drive Dragon because it's a level 3 psychic. If you open it, you can just search the Zeoman instead, the extra copy for follow-up. It's not that big a deal usually. This is just the best one of hand trap to play in this deck. Then we have 1 Eldlich. This is more for the cubic half of the deck than for the punk half of the deck, though he can just outright be an extender if you need him to. A lot of the times if you open him and only like 1 spell or trap that you need to use that turn, and it's like Karma or Dharma, you'll just send him off the Foxy Tune, and then later in the turn, once you've used your continuous spell, he'll send it to summon himself, and he's an extra extender to end on 1 more interaction on the end board. And onto the spells, we have Dharma. This was the best of the support cards that Cubic got. You take no battle damage from attacks involving Cubics, and then you can use each of his other effects once per turn. You can send a Cubic card from your hand to the grave, and then draw a card, and then its other effect, you can banish it from the grave to target a Cubic monster in your grave and add it back to your hand. So it can be Recursion for Duza, it can add the Buster Gundo back, it can add the Giragaio back, so you can loop it for 1600 damage instead. Overall, this card was amazing. The only reason we're only playing it at 2 in this version is just because we're not heavily focusing on just playing Cubics. If it were more of like a pure Cubic and we're running some tuner aspects, then you would play 3, but this being more consistent, it's just better to play it at 2 most of the time. Then we have 3 Karma. Its first 2 effects do not matter. Its third effect, though, you can banish it from the grave to add a Cubic monster from your deck to your hand. That is not once per turn, so if you open like Burial Goods, Duza, you can search 2. And then we have Cubic Wave. This doubles the attack of your monster, halves the attack of the opponent's. Doesn't matter if theirs is unaffected or not, yours will still get doubled. And then its Graveyard effect, which is arguably the more important one in this deck, you can banish it along with any number of Cubic monsters from your graveyard. Target monsters your opponent controls up to that number and give them Cubic counters, which, as we've discussed, negates their effects and prevents them from attacking. Then we've got Burial Goods. This is just for sending your Cubic spells and traps. It searches you access to Duza, it can get Recursion, it can send your Unification as an extender, what have you. Then we've got 3 E-Telly. Your main combo usually is going to revolve around opening Duza and E-Telly or a way to both. This is better than opening Duza Zeoman because obviously you can't normal summon twice. We're not playing double summon. Please don't play double summon. So this is just the better way to get to your punk engine. When you're going first, it's usually better to normal summon the Zeoman compared to when you're going second, usually being better to normal summon the Duza, but sometimes you have to make the choice. Then we've got 3 Prosperity. This is just our consistency card. You can go for 6 if you really want to. Usually if you're going first, it's going to be your Zeus, Access Code, Phoenix, Transcode, Lina, and Link Rebo. If you're going second, it's going to be the go first cards that you don't intend on summoning. I also forgot Black Rose is also one that you can get rid of going first. Then we've got Reasoning. This is just a really good one-off extender. You're playing a lot of different normal summonable levels, so your opponent has a lot of chances to get it right, but at the same time a lot of chances to get it wrong. It's not as effective in this build as it is in other Cubic builds because you're playing so many normal summonable monsters, but just the fact that it can be a free extender, or it can dump your Cubic spells and traps, or even just put a monster in the graveyard for Duza is all amazing. Then we've got 3 Unification. This card, its first effect doesn't matter. We're not even playing the fusion that you can summon off of it. We're not even playing enough monsters to summon the fusion that you can summon off of it. However, if a face-up Cubic monster leaves the field while it's in your graveyard, you can banish it, then special summon a level 4 or lower Cubic, so everything except for Crimson Nova, from your hand or deck, and that turn, mind you, it ignores summoning conditions as well, so you can summon either of these from the deck. Usually you're using it to summon this, that's how it's part of your end board. But the turn that it's summoned, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect. which is just amazing. It means your opponent's only way to clear the Gundle without letting you trigger it on your turn by crashing it is to either kaiju it, and that's the only safe way to get rid of it usually anyway, banish it, which I guess is another safe way, or to send it with a card like Dingirsu, which would trigger its effect. So that's just not the greatest option for them. And then of course we've got our one searchable archetypal imperm. We do end on P.U.N.K monsters, so we can also abuse its life gain effect, especially in game 3 for time, because we pay a lot of life points, but we can burn 800 to our opponent, and we can gain life points back when they try to combo. So there's that. Then we play the one Carp Rising. This is a core combo piece. You just tribute it to summon 2 punks. Usually you're summoning Deer Note and Madam Spider, like I said. You're not usually using its synchro summon effect, like its effect if it's used to synchro on Amazing Dragon, because it doesn't come up very much. Honestly, you're not even making the Amazing Dragon very much if you're going second. Then we have Black Rose. This is just really good. Duzo Italy. You get the Foxy Tune to hand, you send your Unification, you synchro into Black Rose, and you can go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2 in either order that you like. It does not matter. If you want to get the extra summons, that way you have multiple extenders. If you want to get the board nuke guaranteed, it really doesn't matter. I would always do Unification Chainlink 1, so that way you don't lose to Ash Imperm, or Ash Veiler, I guess. But even if you do it the other way, you're going to summon your cubic monster, and everything on the field is going to be destroyed except for the cubic monster that you summon because of Unification's protection effect. So Black Rose is just a really good potential way to either force interaction or to completely blow out the game and then go for lethal from there. Got one Dawn Dragster. This was just the best level 7 we could end on going first. It gives us some form of spell and trap interaction, which the deck does not usually have any answers to, so the Dawn Dragster being level 7 and whatnot is just really helpful. We've got the one Jam Dragon Drive. This is technically a part of our end board, but only for purposes of synchroing into Amazing Dragon. Its more important aspect, though, is adding the Ghost Ogre from your deck to your hand, because that means that you have a second interaction through Dark Ruler. You'll have Babu and Ghost Ogre, and while that's usually not a lot, you're not dying, you will have follow-up 9 times out of 10, so you should usually be fine. This, however, is the main reason that we're playing the Jam Dragon Drive, as we can synchro summon using Sharakusai's effect into the Amazing Dragon and just bounce up to, I think 4 cards is the maximum you can usually get to. Its other effect is good if it survives to turn 3. You can just use it to reborn a P.U.N.K monster, and it's usually really good for going for damage. You usually summon back like a Foxy Tune or a Numeral Ogre, whichever way you happen to go about it. It just becomes a lot of damage. Then we've got the one Dweller. This card is just really good going into tiers. It's almost always part of the end board going first, because you can shotgun it during the standby phase, or if you don't think your opponent has a Dark Ruler, you can just wait for them to put something on the board and activate it so you don't lose to Gamma, because we actually don't have any monster negates in this deck. We do, they're just all on field. Then we've got the Zeus. It doesn't come up often, but it comes up often enough that it's basically Black Rose, honestly. It's just a way to try and force the board out, try and force more negates, whatever. Then we've got Access Code, where this is also a lot of the same. You use it mostly to just try and kill, or to try and break as much of the board as you can. Then we've got the IP. This is part of our end board going first as well. You can use it to quick effect link summon into either Griffin or Unicorn. Very rarely Phoenix if you didn't have to banish it for Prosperity, though that almost never comes up. We play the Griffin because it's really stupid to just set our E-Telly or Reasoning, Prosperity, Gabu, whatever from grave. It can just do a lot on its own. And then the Floodgate effect of it is also really good in this deck. Then we've got Phoenix. This is just an attribute for Access Code, as well as it's a way to try and force back row interaction or just force back row field. Then we've got the Unicorn. This can be used to just force interaction in general, really, though you can also summon it when you're going first using the IP on your opponent's turn. Next up, we have Linkuriboh. This almost never gets summoned, but when you do, it's because you happen to have an extra extender, and Vijam was the way to the extender, or Vijam was the result of that extender. You just make this up top, so that way your Griffin is, like, it makes it harder for your opponent to activate effects, so on and so forth. It also gives your Griffin a draw, which is convenient. Then we have Lina, just because we play a lot of light monsters in this deck. It's just a way to try and take something from our opponent's grave if they also happen to have any light monsters. Not the most common thing, but if it's destroyed, it can add pretty much any of the cards in your deck of the cubic half. Sadly, it can't add Ghost Ogre, but it is what it is. Then we've got Transcode. We can actually use this effect, because while we can't summon except for Cyberse monsters that turn, like special summoning, we use it on turn 3 usually to just go for lethal, right? We'll take our links that we have on board, we'll link into Transcode, we'll bring back IP, and we'll make Access Code. That's the goal when you're summoning Transcode, but also you could just summon it as like your step up in link climbing. So you could go like IP into Transcode into Access Code, and you'll have the extra attribute. Or you could go like Linkuriboh into Phoenix into Transcode into Access Code, and you'll have 3 attributes. it's the best Earthlink 3 we could really play in this deck, especially considering that there is the potential for us to use its effect after burning our opponent for 16 to 18, or for 16 to 24. So yeah, there's that. And then for the side deck, I'm personally on 3 Dogwood because it's good in time, and also because it's just good in the tier matchup. It lets us live long enough to potentially crack through the board. 1 Pankratops because it's a good card. 3 Mystic Mine. Konami, why didn't you ban this card? That's all I'm saying. 3 Cosmic Cyclone, just this deck really folds to back row a lot of the time, and this is better than activating Lightning Storm into it and getting Sully for them to add Hovness or something and just interrupting you even further. 1 Harpies. I know I just said it's better than Lightning Storm and risking Salik, but this deck really struggles versus back row, so you need at least something. We can't really play evenly because like at the end of the day we are still an OTK deck, and while we can now play a much longer game than pure Cubics can, which is already a surprisingly long game, it's just better to have the potential to just clear their board and risk the 1 to 2 more interactions. And then we've got the Scythe package because they hit a pointer, and so here we have the Scythe package. It's kind of as simple as that, really. It's good through Dark Ruler. It's an extra interaction. It's good as a whole. You can just side in the Sanctums and the Scythe when you're going first, and when you're going second, you just take them back out. It's no big deal. Usually you're flip-flopping these with the Mind Pankratops. If you're siding for a particular matchup, it depends on the situation though. But yep, that's it for this. If you would like to see a combo tutorial, let me know. Let's say, I don't know, 15 likes, I guess. I'll post a combo tutorial. But yeah, that's it. Caden signing out. So with all that said, make sure to like and subscribe if you liked the video. Go ahead and join the Discord, which will be in the description if you want to hang out in the community. Make sure to follow us on Twitch and watch one of these videos that pops up somewhere on the screen.